Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Greater Loop, the podcast of the World Affairs Council of Greater Houston. I'm your host, Maryanne Maldonado, and at the World Affairs Council, we explore global issues that shape our lives. And today's conversation sits squarely at the intersection of diplomacy, international trade, energy security, technology, and the shifting balance of power. We're going to be talking about artificial intelligence. And it's no longer a simple tech innovation. It's really becoming a way of life. Businesses are using it. Individuals are using it. Governments are using it. Today, we're here to understand a little bit more of that with our guest. I'm so glad that we have Leon Coe, who is the founder of Amplify Intelligence and also the president of the Houston AI Club. And he is a recognized leader helping executives and organizations understand how AI is changing the way we work, innovate, and we compete. Leon, welcome to The Greater Loop. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Excited for this conversation.
Well, so am I. You talk about yourself as being the Houston AI guy. That's very exciting to learn. I don't suppose there's many of you, but there might be a few. Tell us, what is artificial intelligence, how it impacts us currently, and some of the things that we're going to see in the horizon?
Sure. It's a great place to start. Sometimes it's easier for definitions to start with the negative. What isn't artificial intelligence? Well, it's not human intelligence. It's not biological intelligence, right? So whenever someone asks what is intelligence, they typically imbue a kind of human property, right? And so it's making good decisions, thinking through things, processing information, analyzing it, right? As you kind of talk through it more, artificial intelligence is, in a sense, what we've been able to create with software and with computers to either imitate or emulate or replicate what was previously exclusively the domain of human intelligence and create a level of approximation, right? Or at the very least, something that looks like it. So artificial intelligence is something that's very, very broad, right? When they say AI, do they mean large language models like Claude, ChatGPT, which most people are familiar with? But if you ask that question just 5 years ago, what they probably meant was machine learning or neural nets or adversarial networks. It's a massive field, but generally when people talk about AI today, they're talking about the outcome. And I think the simplest way to think about AI is it's the software that makes certain kind of work that was previously completely exclusive to humans, potentially dramatically cheaper, right? So all those things that I talked about, analyzing data, thinking about things, writing things, creating images, creating art, creating music, right? It's now all multimedia as well. It's not just text. And so that's how I kind of think about AI in a nutshell. It's this tool that allows us to do more within the confines of our own personal experience.
I think some of us might be a little afraid of AI taking over. We've heard that. And I think AI has had that hype for a little while. Mm-hmm. That's okay. We understand that. But we understand there's also immense opportunities. Maybe you could speak to a little of those.
I'm happy to speak to both. So I gave a presentation last summer because fear around AI was very high at that time. I think maybe even more than today. I think a lot of people are really embracing AI today. Certainly some are pushing it away. But the analogy that I came up with last summer was the analogy of the deer in the headlights, right? You can instantly close your eyes, picture in your mind, there's a deer, you're driving down the highway, the headlights illuminates the deer, right? The deer's frozen. And you've got, a multi-ton truck or whatever coming straight at the deer, and the deer's looking at you. And, you're like, swerve out of the way. What do I do? Whatever. And I think with AI, a lot of people can resonate with that deer in the headlights feeling of paralyzing fear, right? And what I say is that's okay. That's totally appropriate because the deer should be afraid. There's real danger lurking, right? There's something coming 60, 70, 80 miles per hour that can cause real harm. But what is the only way that the deer can get harmed? By staying in the road, by not moving, by not taking action, by not doing something about it, right? And so that's what I say to people about AI. It's okay to have that moment because it feels like, oh my gosh, it's just overwhelming capability so quickly. And I've been in AI for a decade now, so I've seen it progress. And in some sense, it is very rapid, but AI 10 years ago was much less powerful. But what I tell people is, hey, if you find yourself feeling that fear, that paralyzing fear, the best thing you can do is start acting on it, doing things about it, moving, that's how you get yourself out of the position of this truck is coming to hit me, right? And into the position of safety and opportunity and moving on to another day. Hopefully that analogy helps.
Absolutely. But there are vast opportunities that come with it, right? Maybe you could speak to some of those.
Of course. So when it comes to opportunities, I mean, I think today OpenAI and Anthropic are both like trillion-dollar companies, right? So certainly some people, at the very least investors, see the value, right, that's being created. And it's a very rare, if seldom, any company that is valued more than the value it creates for other people. So what are we actually dealing with? We're dealing with multi-trillion-dollar value creation, right? Because those are just the two top companies. Really, you'd have to fold in quite a bit of value from Google and the other major players as well. So what are the actual opportunities? I think the big thing that it unlocks, well, I mean, there's really two things, but the thing that I've been talking with people and working with people for at Amplify for our executive AI coaching is the first place that people's mind goes once they learn a little bit about AI is they go, I want to automate this in my business, right? That's the first thing they say. And one thing that we're really passionate about at Amplify is teaching people AI is not an automation technology, it's an augmentation technology. So what does that actually mean in practice? Sure, you can use AI in workflows, you can embed it, but what makes AI in the current crop of AI, generative AI, so unique is actually its key difference from software and code that we've had, right? Anytime you write software, it's like a logic puzzle. Anytime you get X, you apply a transformation and you get the same Y. And if you don't, something's probably broken, right? Generative AI is totally different. You can put the same prompt in to the same model in the same settings and ask it 10 different things, and it's come back with different ideas, 10 different re-expressions, right? And so to me, the first place that companies should really start is thinking about AI as an augmentation technology. And that's why we named the company Amplify Intelligence, is because there needs to be that human intelligence to direct it to a goal, to a telos, to an end, to an objective, to curate context, the proper information, right? Those are the skills required to make AI effective in creating opportunities. So the first thing is what everyone wants to do, which is little efficiency gains or big efficiency gains. You can do all of that using AI as a pseudo automation tool. It's so powerful, it can even do that, even though it's not its intention. But I think the thing where people and executives should point their eyes to is because AI exists, because this model, because this app, because whatever exists, what could we now do for our clients that we couldn't previously? So let me give a quick example. There's lots of wealth managers, and what they might send a quarterly financial update on your portfolio. Why did they do that? Well, oftentimes when you reflect on why companies do certain things, it's because that was the greatest frequency that they could do it. There was a lot of human labor in going in and assembling all that reports. Well, now if they wanted, they could send daily ones. Now, most people probably shouldn't get daily financial updates on their portfolio because they might stress a little. But the point is, there's probably a somewhere in the middle point that we could create for a very cheap or very efficient or very profitable opportunity. And so that's what I think about in terms of opportunity creation is actually net new opportunity creation. And I think the overwhelming majority of the value we've been doing with AI is not in that category. But I think the net new opportunity creation is way bigger than any of this other stuff.
You call yourself the Houston AI guy. Tell
Sure.
us, how is artificial intelligence showing its face in industries that are predominantly here in Houston? Energy, medicine, space, transportation, the port.
Yeah, for me, I was born and raised in Houston, right? I'm going to live here almost certainly for the rest of my life. And so as I was building my career in AI, it became very important to be able to contribute to the city, contribute to the economy. And the thing that got me really excited about Houston and why I love the city is because a major reason is because the economy is so massive. I mean, Houston is doing real things. So everything that you just said, nationally recognized medicine, global recognition in shipping and oil and gas, and leadership and innovation, right? Now, when people think AI, they do not think Houston today, right? You probably think San Francisco, maybe New York, maybe Austin, right? Probably not much after that. But when you look at the shape of those economies, right, the shape of Austin and the shape of San Francisco's economies is primarily dominated by software, right? Well, I had this belief years ago and still do that AI is going to ripple through every industry, right? Not just software. And it's going to need to be applied. It's going to need to be applied by humans, individuals, people who understand real world things. And that's why I think Houston is so primed, because we have this massive economy, right? For AI to be applied to innovate, to make energy more efficient, to do all these things, right? And so that's what really excites me about Houston is I think Houston, maybe 5 or 10 years looking back, could become the applied AI capital of the world, right? And that narrative is not really out there yet, but that's what I'm trying to promote with the Houston AI Club. But where do we start? If we're honest with ourselves, we don't have the quantity and density of AI talent to go into these companies. Every company I talk to wants to hire more AI people. I was just recently at an event where HCC is focused on a program. I think they were putting 800 students already through applied technology, AI and robotics. They're going to double it next year. 1,600 still isn't enough. Houston, we've got millions of people here. Every company needs more great AI people, right? And so going back to that fear thing, if you're fearful about your job, if you're fearful about your future opportunities, you have to go the opposite direction. You have to run towards the AI and say, I'm going to be my company's best AI person, right? Because what I always tell people who are looking for jobs is 10% of people in every company are the top 10% of AI at that company. And if you're there, you're going to have a really good chance of being safe in your job, right? So those are the opportunities I'm really excited about, and especially our unique position in Houston.
Let's shift our focus now to kind of the geopolitical side of things. Lately, it feels like computing power is becoming the new oil for a Houston example. What does that mean for a city like us built on energy? And tell us a little bit about the AI computing power fight. Everyone is trying to grapple for a piece of land in that game.
Sure. I mean, compute is an extremely scarce resource. And in some sense, I might argue it's the most powerful or leveraged technology that we've ever built, right? I mean, eventually you go down and compute only exists because we have oil, and compute only exists because we have electricity. But I think on its own, compute is incredibly powerful. And right now, it's scarce. Why is it scarce? Well, it's physical, right? And it's extremely in demand. That's the big thing that people miss with all this AI stuff. What makes us different than 1999 is we can't keep up with demand, right? 1999, there was all this potential, but these companies going public and then crashing didn't have much revenue, didn't have much demand. No one knew how to buy stuff on the internet, right? That's the difference now is everyone is talking about how we're physically constrained. But ultimately, at the end of the day, compute is just potential, right? It's what you do with it. It's what you apply. It's how you use humans to apply that compute to bring leverage, to bring new products and services, to become more efficient, right? And I think we kind of are really positioning ourselves in Houston for both, right? If there needs to be drastically more compute, then there needs to be more energy to produce it. That's us, energy capital, not going anywhere. But then we've got this whole massive economy that's going to take that newly created demand. And what does AI do? It brings the cost to do something down or the capability to do something better up. Where does it need to be applied? The whole rest of our economy, right? It's this really great cycle. I think I'm super optimistic about the next 10 to 20 years of business and economies and abundance because there's so much work to be done across every industry. It's easier than ever.
So much opportunity, and yet the risks are immense in artificial intelligence, especially around national security. Countries are using this against each other in their weaponry in a myriad of different ways. Tell us a little bit about some of the highest risks of AI users and how it may impact us here.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest risks, right, and I think it's very top of mind and salient for people, is hacking and cybersecurity. So like I just talked about, AI oftentimes takes the cost of something down, right, or the experience needed down. Well, the overwhelming majority of people, they're going to use it for good. They're going to use it for fun. They're going to use it in their personal life. They're going to use it in their business, try to become more profitable, right? Bring in more revenue, do all of these positive things. On the contrary, right, our adversaries are always going to be trying to use as much compute as they deem necessary to threaten, people's companies, people's businesses, people's livelihoods. But, it's this cat and mouse type of game back and forth. They're getting more compute. We're getting more compute as well, right? Both OpenAI and Anthropic now have shipped to everyone essentially security vulnerability packages. So even if you're not a cybersecurity expert, you can run this on your code base and actually identify vulnerabilities, and it will build protections for you or show you where you're vulnerable, right? So I think it's just an endless cat and mouse game. And sometimes it feels like it's going to be really different. And in some sense, if you're not aware, if you're asleep at the wheel, if you don't have proper protections, then the cost to hack you could potentially go down, right? But at the same time, we have greater access to tools as everyday individuals too, and we can't forget that.
So tell us a little bit about AI usage and kind of technologies as it applies to the risks associated around country to country exchange and wars.
Yeah, I think it's a really hard question to answer, honestly, because with anything geopolitical, right, there are many factions and sub factions within the major initiatives, right? And so, I don't have a super great answer in terms of this cat and mouse game. All I know from a regulatory perspective, is if we go the direction of the EU and be incredibly aggressive in terms of overly litigious and extremely strong punishments, especially ones that aren't founded on a good understanding of what the technology does, right? Then we're going to constrain and choke out an industry, right? And that's always been our strength. And everyone knows that there are certain countries who either do not have those regulations or do not abide by them or are playing a different geopolitical or strategic game. And we have to remember, at the end of the day, economic forces went out, right? If it cost us 2x to build a model in America than what it does in another country, what do you think is going to happen, right? If we're under 90-day review or embargoes in the fastest moving industry that I think pretty much everyone's been seeing, then that's going to really potentially stunt growth, right? And so I certainly don't have all the answers in terms of those trade-offs, but I think that's the job of the politicians and the people leading on industry and regulation is understanding, safeguarding America's interest and our citizenship, right? And then also putting protective regulations in like we do in any industry to protect individuals that's morally aligned with our founding principles.
You spoke about self-governing companies like Anthropic maybe are self-governing themselves. Who should write the rules for AI usage? Should it be governments? Should it be the UN, private sector?
Well, I guess this is more of a personal opinion, but I probably wouldn't say the UN. Yeah, probably not them. I think every country should just regulate itself. And I understand that we don't all live in isolation, right? But no company lives in a self-governing system, right? Because if that was the case, then how I would choose to govern my company is to give myself a tax rate of 0%, right? So I live under the jurisdiction of the United States and I comply with their laws and rules to the best of my capability. And that's our exchange, right? For the capability to live in the US and to operate and do commerce and do business, I agree to elect and vote for politicians and then to abide by the laws and the enforcements of the law of the land. Sometimes I think we kind of forget that, but it's really not any more complex than that. And I certainly won't like every regulation that they, create, but my perspective and my incentives are very different than everyone else, right? No one likes any of their rules, right? No one likes their speed limits. No one likes their ticket fines, right? Definitely no one likes their tax rate. We all just kind of end up compromising. And so I think ultimately at the end of the day, our strategic imperative is making sure that strategy comes number one, right? And we don't do anything to strategically lose because we're certainly going to lose some skirmishes, but strategically we can't cede any sort of ground because we have massive advantages for the people and the resources and the economy in the United States. And I think as long as we take care of that, we're, like I said, the next 10 to 20 years of the economy is going to be completely transformed, radically transformed in ways that are literally incomprehensible today. But I'm extremely optimistic in a positive way.
So let's close out with some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Are you an AI optimist or an AI realist?
I'm a real AI optimist. I'm an optimist about everything, right? I think the opportunities are immense, but with every challenge, the opportunity to become better is presented. And I think we really forget that, right? And so in some sense, it's like a transformative challenge to become better. And I think that's necessary and beneficial.
Love that answer. The country to watch besides the US and China.
None of them.
None of them? We shouldn't be watching any of them?
I mean, you can watch them as much as you want, but I don't think any country really, I guess, once again, my personal opinion, I think the only country that matters is the United States.
Maybe you could tell us about one big AI myth.
I think something that, people talked about for a long time was around hallucinations, right? AI making things up. And I think when you kind of dig deeper into the technical, there's really no barrier between what a hallucination is and what any other response is. Now, the model companies have been able to eliminate or almost eliminate the AI making up facts, but the current world of large language models is much, much more mysterious and kind of mystical than people imagine. So I think the two things are around hallucinations and verbatim copyright infringement. AI doesn't really do any of those things anymore. And there could be lots of arguments on a philosophical level where they kind of never did.
Sure. And last question, what AI breakthrough do you expect to see that maybe will surprise us in the next 5 or 10 years? Probably less than that, maybe 1 or 2 years.
I was going to say 5 or 10 years. Yeah. I did a presentation in January and I tried to project, what was going to happen by the end of 2026. And I thought I was pretty aggressive in my projections and pretty out there, and pretty much all of them came true before the end of February. So it's incredibly hard to predict what's going to happen. The question was, what AI breakthrough over the next 5 years?
Is it the learning models that are going to continue to learn very quickly upon themselves and write new systems? And any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's so hard to looking back 5 years. So, and I could just talk through this really quick. Just over 1 year ago, AI models started to write code across 1 or 2 files. And over the course of 7 months, went to basically building full apps. So it's incredibly difficult to go back to, 5 years ago, ChatGPT didn't exist, right? Because I believe it was February 2022 is when ChatGPT came out. So to go 5 years into the future on where all of this is going is incredibly difficult. But I think all that to say, the founding premise behind Amplify and what we do is kind of these tech nerds, for lack of a better phrase, since about 2013, 2015, have been talking about artificial general intelligence and fast takeoff and all of these rapid things, right? And now, in some sense, they've kind of been proven right, but in another sense, they've been proven wrong. And so what they've been proven right in is, I think, this accelerating, increasing AI capability. But what they've been wrong in is the adoption timeline and the ease of that. And that's everything that we're focused on at Amplify is we believe these actual technical capabilities are continuing to arc and to accelerate, but we believe the actual implementation and application and adoption of them continues to be an extremely human challenge. And so our mission is to be that shepherd to non-technical, non-software kind of companies such that they can get all these benefits, right, that they're hearing about. And so I think, the thing that's most radical is our capabilities are going to be transformationally different, but the actual process and what much of business looks like and how long it takes to get those capabilities into companies looks, pretty much the same, which is kind of, talking out of both sides of my mouth. But I think that's going to be kind of the case is, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Leon, it's been our pleasure to have you on the Greater Loop. Thank you all for watching and talk with you next time.
Thanks for having me.